Under the Radar is a web radio that unites three people that use their spoken words powerfully. Alex, Céline and Marco are here to see and speak, to see what is being played instantly, honestly, without any complacency for themselves or for the other, to see precisely and to speak freely, to reveal their own power. The first recordings will give you the tonality of the exchanges right here.
Hi Céline, hi Alex. I'm proposing you to speak about a subject this evening about the help. It is not the help to realize. There's a nuance that we are going to observe together. Can you talk about this, Céline? Of course. So Alex is saying that's valuable when we're in contact with a relationship with someone, or when this personal or professional situation, whatever, when we're in contact with another individual, there's a possibility of helping him to see. When you have a nuance to see, I can help you to see, but I can't do the work at your place. So Céline adds, yes, of course, because if not, we're in interference. But, and there's no interest for this, very simply. Yes, help to see what is being played is very important. But at the same time, I'm not going to show right away what is being seen. It's to invite the other to observe very well. By his own observation, that is going to be even more efficient. So all the subtlety is there, because if not, if we bring everything on a platter, then it doesn't have the efficiency that we're trying to create, I think. Why? Because the person needs to live fully the thing, the situation, the event with his own observation. It's to invite him first to observe, to see what is being played. Where are you? The famous phrase that we say is, where are you now? And then we pull the string, and that's how it happens. And it's very interesting because even if we have the faculty of seeing quickly what is being played, the interest is not to say, here, that's what's being played, because that is completely abusive. That's what I think. It's to bring him to see himself. Sometimes he'll see it quickly, and sometimes it'll be much slower. But it can be done. And then beyond the observation that is done by the person herself, the invitation is, well, now what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with your own observation? Once you've seen what is being played concretely, once you've been able to see what is being played in the subtle worlds, today, right now, what are you going to do? So after the observation, the invitation to observation, then there's the invitation to act. Observation, action. And in any case, I will do the things at the place of the person. That's how I practice, very simply. And Alex is explaining, I'm seeing it's very interesting when you speak of intrusion. You don't impose yourself to the other with your representations, with what you see. And you distinguish the moment where you have the possibility of saying, it's important that it can be said, with the moments where it's too quick, we could say it that way. Sometimes we know that it's too quick to say something or certain thing, or that we bring a point of view. It can destructuralize the representation of the person, and it can even create a confusion instead of a clarification. That's what I'm hearing. And it's a great vigilance that we have to use. What you're showing right now is that it's not because we have the capacity of seeing that we impose our vision or the point of view, and we're advantaged in a situation to help the person see by himself. That's what I see. There's a process behind it. It's the observation. We speak of, when we are in many, many layers, And it's like we could say it like transmit it to someone else. There's a moment where he won't need you anymore, and that's the goal, Céline is saying, because once we've acquired this dynamic, I don't want to speak of a recipe or a dynamic, but it's really a real dynamic, a different dynamic in his life, meaning at that moment, the person will be in his autonomy, in his own observation, in a regular way. And he'll know how to see the scenario that is being played and what place he has and what are the actors and what is the event that's happening also. And that for me is a kif, like a love that many people can do this. But evidently, what I practice in the exchanges that I can have with people, well, is that it's asking me to have a certain delicateness, like you were saying, to not be intrusive or to impose a vision that would be good but would not be completely adapted to the person, because that person wouldn't have seen it or examined it, apprehended it in what is there and in the ensemble. So yes, observation, to invite to observe always, and to invite to act also. So yeah, there's an autonomy afterwards. So that autonomy can also be pointed, like an appointed line. Why? Because actually we can be easily destabilized, because an information to have is that the more that we are in this finesse of seeing, the more that we're going to see the events come and tempt to destabilize, because it's the interest to no one that the human be in his clairvoyance and his autonomy. So that once we know it, well, we're well armed, because I saw you come. I saw the thoughts come that are parasites. I can see an attack, a situation, that come and really bring bullshit. The game is, okay, I understood the game, but the game, what is it going to be? Is not to feel destabilized. So there's going to be a moment where you're going to float, because you'll have to do this analysis, this vision of an ensemble. It's like a computer that's there inside of him, and the scenario is there, it's being played. I understood, but I can act though. So Alex is saying, and what you're bringing is not an intention that can always be in continuation. That confronted me lately. I still had the impression that was cut off by moments of confusion, and momentarily it destabilized me. And it was, I needed like a time to observe. And I saw lately that it was logical. Today, anyway, it can't be permanently. There's a process, once it's known, that comes back. The more you practice, the more it becomes a reflex. Yeah, I want to say this, like, what's being played? What is being played here? So it passes by the observation. The mechanism is simple. It's an observation. And it's cut off by periods when you speak of attacks. That's what creates like an interruption of this observation, that in fact, finally there's a situation of confusion. And that I started to accept it. And it's okay. It's a step of being confused. You don't have to stop anything or feel guilty or to be permanently in that state. And it showed me that sometimes I needed, it's like a point of view, but to recognize that, can you help me to see what's happening here? but you're not imposing that clairvoyance on me. And we see together the situation. And that's what I find interesting also. And Céline adds, that's what I call more like a practice of helping each other. How do I say this? And what I do with people is, evidently, we're always looking for people to represent us, like a coach or to be accompanied. But it's very difficult to find one. So we're like drowning in all kinds of actors that are around us. But what I love to bring as an explanation is that because evidently what I practice, it touches. It's going to touch the people that have come out of spirituality or in a phase of coming out of it, or maybe still have a foot in it but have captivated the energy that is supramental, but maybe they're in between, or maybe they're in recognition with this frequency of the supramental energy. But there's no miracle, and it's not from one day to the other or the next hour. So it's asking for a lot of integration, and sometimes we need more than an accompaniment that's already been understood with the person that I'm speaking or working with. So it's really, it's like we were numerous, that I am perceiving. We're numerous to have captivated that energy. But we have these moments also where we are sometimes in doubt or fatigue even, because everything is done so that we can't go into this path. It's like it's our own evolution, an individual evolution. So what's being presented for my part is that we're all at the same point. I have this faculty of being able to help at a key moment, but it's not going to be in a whole life, meaning that person needs a key because something is happening. That's all. I'm going to bring this person to see where she is or he is, and I'm going to bring this person to be in an action with his own observations. So there, it's like reinforcement. It's like we can all be disseminated with these little moments, and I bring that moment. I bring reinforcement there, and it's helping what the person already started to do. Like my services, like yours, are not really addressed to people that are full in spirituality and only see this. They'll be in a shock, and we're not going to be the right people for this, I think, anyways. But there's all of this zone there that is starting to emerge, you and me and the ones that are listening also. And in fact, it's really moments, it's punctual, and it's reinforcement. It's to sustain one another. I'm not going to transform you. I have no power on this, and it's absolutely not what interests me. And I'm not going to sell you a program. That's not possible. So we are between each other in confidence, and it's a practice of reinforcement and sustaining one another, like a group that is together with sympathetic energies and are learning to recognize each other, and things are done like this. Alex says, I like the way you speak of it, when you put the notion of reinforcement. behind this, there's always this notion of being punctual. It's a reinforcement that's punctual. It's not in a duration. You don't become like something that they need. And I like that word because you give your strength to the person that comes momentarily to ask for help. And that's what I hear behind reinforcement. And I'd like to share, how do I say this, my own path in rapport to this, because lately I took the part of identifying a certain type of person that I wanted to work with that corresponded to my own personal experience by saying behind there's a mechanism of resilience that's behind it. And who's better than me that can take that person on, because I lived it. And that's interesting in a certain point of view. And at the same time, it can be limited in another point of view, because the mechanism of reinforcement that you speak of, that you practice, that I practice, the mechanism is the same whatever the individual, meaning we have the capacity. It's a reflection that we are doing together with a few reserves, meaning that the person would not be full in spirituality or did a certain work of introspection. We could, do words like say words like this. Sometimes we're numerous to say the word that I'm going to use corresponds more or less, and we are trying to understand or use words, but behind there's a process, and the process that I see, I described it lately when I did the direct with Valérie. I spoke of this meaning that we meet the person, and there's a time in which the meeting, the exchange is done, the point of view is done, and the moment there's a point that the exchange is done, and it permits me to speak about it. It's not the tool in itself that is primal. Each and every one has a way of doing or is a sensibility, and there's not one that is better than the other. But it's not the essential. The essential is really the contact that is done from individual to individual, and it's the exchange of observation that is done, meaning the observation that you help. You help the person, and you're not substituting that the job that the person needs to do. So there's a decoding that's done, but it needs to be integrated in the experience, in action, and it can't be in a substitution. There's a work that is common, meaning you're part of the work, and the other will have his own part of work to do, an observation that is done in what he sees lived. Yes, of course, it is saying concerning the specificity of what you do, the same experience of life. Yes, of course, it's applicable to this situation. My way of doing, my way of decoding, or helping the other decode. After, it's to see who we have in front of us, meaning it's a real meaning to adapt ourselves to where he or she is, because I'm not going to impose where I am. So that we need to be delicate and lots of listening. For my part, a lot of observation, evidently. And then what I wanted to say momentarily, the reinforcement. What I talk about reinforcement is punctual and momentarily, but it doesn't mean that the same person can't come back and ask to decode another situation that she can't do momentarily. But she can do it for 50 times, but the 51 time it doesn't work. So there's nothing definitive, nothing. So we are in a world where we are without stop, solicited, confused, attacked, So effectively, we ourselves, in our own individuality, we are in a combat to be able to be who we are. So effectively, we can have another meeting. You've had events, I've had events, and we'll have more. And it's just observation and then action. Alex is saying, yes, it's nice to be able to precise the punctual way of doing things. I hear about wanting the other person to be in the will of autonomous, but not making the other person dependent or believe that we are better than the other. We have that prudence. That's what Céline is saying. Of course, we are there, but once we've understood that the person acted on certain points and that she needs a decoding on a certain situation and partnership, well, yeah, it's okay, evidently. That's the reinforcement. It's reinforcement in a war. We are in the jungle here, so it's reinforcement as an ally. I don't know how to say it, but effectively, we see that in this situation that we live with this situation of helping, etc. When we touch the limited part of the being, there's a real difficulty of putting a limit on what we do, because really there's no limit. Because really there is no limit. And that's the difficulty that we have to enter into a collective dogma to be understood, really, because a term that we're using today is coaching, but that's been used, and we don't like those words because it's used so much. There's like an egregore behind it, so each and every one has their own representation, but it's almost negative instead of positive. But we have to start and find something together and to discharge the egregore in the way of doing. And we can do it differently of what's being done in a massive way. So in fact, what I want to precise tonight is really a meeting between individuals to individuals, and that's disconnected from all egregores. Because if we say that the meeting is instantaneous, it's horizontal, and it's also we meet on Monday, but if we meet on Tuesday, the observation won't be the same. So there's a reactualization process, there's impermanence, and we verify and what's being put in place each time. So it's in that sense that today, to resume this in one word, well, maybe the word isn't. I like the word reinforcement, actually. It speaks to me a lot, actually. And it's interesting also what you're saying, the facility that we have with certain people and maybe not as much with others, because they'll feel, the people, that if it's something that's meant to be, because tonight we're talking about working together. We've done it individually, but now we're really going to do it together. We've had meetings, confidential meetings, and that is all being put in place. It's a vocation to deploy. And after Céline is saying, well, concerning the work that we're doing together, what I love is the complementary part of each other. You have that spirit, Alex, of being in the concrete world, and I have my subtle part that is much more active. But I help you to see, and you also help me to see. And what we've done together is is good, actually. And I'm very in accordance with this. Alex is saying there's an efficiency, a complementary part that's acting with one another. There's things that you're going to see, Céline, directly, and there's things that I will see directly. And these 2 points of view, they have a side that's like a 360 degrees. And once we've seen something together, there is very little space that's not visited. It's very interesting to note, Céline was adding, because your subtle part takes more place and my concrete part takes more place, and together we can like globalize and meet each other individually and in this globality, and it takes more and more space. And sometimes I was more in the subtle worlds and not less in the concrete world, and it can speak to a lot of people, and it shows also that it's possible to touch our globality. And that also I love to bring in what we're doing. And Alex is explaining that people that comment a lot on the web radio, and we're saying thank you. It's very enriching, all their comments. And yes, what I wanted to say beyond all of these thank yous is that these evolution of vibrations, that there's certain people who started to read 2 or 3 weeks ago, today is not at all the same intensity that it was before, and that without wanting it. That's contagious. There's an effect that is contagious and that we can see and listen to between the lines, and that we've seen it with people. And it's nice to be able to see in a collective way, like Céline is saying, for each individual. There's no collective that is cutting off each other. There's individuals that are, I don't know how to explain it, are sending this emulation, and it's nice to see this change of a vibe that we can see in the comments. And Alex, what I wanted to say and try to finish to say, Alex is saying, but I just wanted to say that what we're seeing is that we didn't search for this, but that we're seeing, but because we're seeing it, we wanted to do something with it. It's becoming a communal will, like to profit almost, and this contagious character after putting it in place. And that's what we do already. And at the same time, to see this vibrational evolution in the comments shows us again the confidence that our frequencies know where to go. They know exactly where to go. And it's really nice to see. And Alex is explaining, it's what's different from the web radios, that people will come and see us individually. We'll be able to look at the people specifically. We're not like looking at the people that are asking questions, but they're talking about what they've lived, and that also gave us the invitation to look specifically at what is being played individually. And it's in that sense that we're inscribing the meetings that we're proposing, the two of us. Is there something that was coming and complemented what we said? No, not really. If it's, maybe it puts me in joy actually to see these meetings. And what I love also, why I love these comments is because it's another exercise of the speech. Of course, it's written, but I hear the vibes. It's vibrating. We're not only on expressing a testimony. I hear the vibrations of the person, and effectively, it's a first exercise of this of speech, writing the comments down, and I find that I like it, and that's how I started also. Before recuperating my words, and it's a precursor. Alex is saying it starts that way. It's not the rule, but it usually starts that way, and it permits me to see that's how I started the podcast, because we can feel it's not the same dynamic when we take the pen, or that we start to speak. There's something that happens. There's a continuation, a follow-up. And then the two, that really something is happening when we start to speak. And that, I know that it's important that it can be done right now, particularly right now. Yeah, it's starting to move in that way, Céline is adding. It's in the order of things. Thank you, Céline. Thank you, Alex.